Actually, dun dun dun. This is Movie Night with the Boys. Hi, welcome to Movie Night with the Boys. I'm John,
And I'm Zach.
and we're a weekly podcast where we talk about movies. And this week, we're talking about 2021's Night Teeth. And that was directed by Adam Randall, and it was starring George Lendenborg Jr. as Benny. He was in Bumblebee and both of the more recent Spider-Man sequels. Debbie Ryan, who played Blair. She's pretty well known for Sweet Life on Deck and Jessie from Disney and the show Insatiable. Lucy Fry played Zoe, and she was in Bright. Raul Castillo, who played Jay. Um, he was in Gotham, and he's been in a bunch of other stuff. Sydney Sweeney, who played Eva. She was in Euphoria and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Megan Fox was Grace. She was in Jennifer's Body, two of the Transformers movies, and both of the Ninja Turtle movies by Michael Bay. So the movie is about a college student working as a chauffeur who picks up two women for a night of party hopping across LA. However, when he discovers their bloodthirsty intentions and their dangerous underworld, he must fight to stay alive. Zach, why don't you tell us about it, bud?
Night Teeth, 2021. So the movie starts with Blair telling us they're all around us, under our noses, and we don't know. She goes on to explain in the old days, things were easier. They hunted us, we hunted them. And in LA, Boyle Heights fought back the hardest. So they set up a truce.
Mhm.
And the vampires lived in secret, and us humans, we convinced ourselves that they were never real, and we made up stories and movies about them. We got rich, and vampires also got rich and powerful. She says to this day, there are some people who still uphold the truce as long as they abide by three rules. Don't let humans know you exist. Don't feed on the unwilling. And lastly, never enter Boyle Heights without an invitation.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. So we pick up at a laundromat where we meet Jay and his girlfriend. We cut to them in a car when another car like speeds up on them. Jay pulls out a gun. The two men kind of have a stare down at a red light, and then Jay kind of speeds off. He stops the car, tells Maria, take the car, go stay at her brother's. He goes into the warehouse, pulls his gun, and inside he finds three dudes like strung upside down. And then he hears Maria scream and he rushes outside, and the door of the car is completely ripped off. There's some blood, and Maria's gone. So we cut to Benny, and he's sleeping in class. Then we get some cuts of him on a skateboard, him in the library writing papers. We find out he's selling papers to other students. And then we also learn that he wants to get into music, but he doesn't really show anybody his work. Then we cut to him at his house where we meet his abuela, and we cut to him again making some beats when he hears Jay on the phone, and he goes out and he starts talking to Jay, and this is kind of, I guess, where we learn that they're brothers. So he goes to talk to Jay, and Jay tells him he's got to work and he doesn't have a driver. So Benny's like, okay, I could do it, and Jay's reluctant, doesn't really want to do it. And then Benny's just like, all right, cool, whatever. And then Jay throws him the keys, right? So he tells him, if anybody asks, you're me. If you get stopped, you're me, right? You're
Mhm.
me while you're driving this car.
Mhm.
So he's like, all right, cool. So then we get a bunch of cuts of him driving through LA. And I was like, "How far is this place?" Because like he left in the afternoon and he didn't arrive to the destination until it was dark out,
Yeah. Long drive.
right? I didn't realize LA was that big.
Maybe in traffic.
Then we finally get to the house where we end up meeting Blair and Zoe, and they give them a list of parties that they're going to for the night, and they head out. So the first party they get to, we see the girls, they kind of show this little ruby thing, and you see the like bouncers kind of scan it. So we cut to Jay and one of his homies, and we learned that for 3 generations, that's how long this truce has been going on for. I'm not too sure how long 3 generations is. What is that?
I would assume at least 30 years, but
That's decades though. Like
yeah, how
gener-
what is maybe 75 to 100, maybe it's got to be 75 to
I don't
90.
know. Whatever it is, right? And the fact that he was the one to finally break the peace, and Benny kind of is just like, all right, we're going to get this Victor guy, and Victor's the guy that was in the car. Uh, I guess the guy who took Maria at the beginning.
Mhm.
So we cut back to Benny, who kind of is passed out in the car again. This kid likes to sleep wherever, and so he wakes up to a scream. And he gets out of the car and he ends up kicking one of the rubies, and I guess he just ends up picks it up. And the girls come out of the house after he picks up the ruby, and it's just like, get back in the car. Right? So they head to the next party. The girls go inside, and Benny is doing some schoolwork, and he hears his phone go off. So he looks, and it's Victor saying, "Oh, I can't wait to meet you." Then he decides to open up the bag that the girls have, and it's full of cash. And he's like flicking through the money, and all of a sudden he gets blood splattered on his face. And he kind of goes through the bag, and he sees that there's blood in the bag. So he's kind of like freaking out. And as this is happening, a cop pulls up. So
He super panics right there for some reason. Like he's
yeah,
not
I
even
don't
doing anything wrong.
exactly, right? So he kind of gets out of the car and he kind of sneaks his way over to like where the girls like went inside. So he gets inside and he's in this weird kind of fancy hotel, and he walks up to like the front desk where he flashes a ruby, and they scan it and they let him go upstairs. So he finds the two girls drinking the blood of the two owners of the place, and we learn that the girls are vampires. Zoe grabs Benny and tells him that, and Benny tells her that he's not Jay, he's Benny, Jay's brother. So Zoe wants to kill him, and Blair stops him, saying he can bring them to Jay when one of the guys kind of wakes up. So Benny uses this opportunity to escape, and when he gets to the garage, the cop is kind of sitting there. It seems like he's waiting for him,
Of course
right?
he was. Of course he was.
So Benny runs over and he tries to explain, and the cop just is like, "Yeah, okay, I'm arresting you. You sound like a psychopath on drugs." And then we see that he popped the trunk, and he's about to stick Benny in the trunk of his car, and he's like, "What happens upstairs stays upstairs." Right?
Yep.
So so then at this point the girls come out of the hotel and they tell the cop, "He's mine, he's ours, give him back."
Yep.
And so they take Benny and then and smash his cell phone. So he has no way to contact anybody.
Dun dun dun.
So we cut to Victor, and he's kind of in his like weird live blood bank area thing. And he jumps in his car and he leaves. We cut back to Benny, and he's trying to escape only to be quickly stopped. Vampires have super speed. So
Who are
it
you
was
trying to run from?
pretty stupid, right? So then we cut back to Victor, and he's arriving at his destination, and this is where we meet his bosses, Eva and Grace. And basically, we find out that Victor's been banned for breaking the truce, and he kind of has to grovel to them to kind of make a case for why they should lift the ban. And then basically, he's like, "Yeah, I don't need you to lift the ban." He tells them his plan, and he's gonna kill them. We cut back to Blair and Benny's kind of freaking out, and Blair makes him smoke some kind of joint,
Mm.
and I believe we learn that it's angel dust. but I don't know.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So we learn more background and what Jay has to do with all of this. We see Zoe talking to Victor after he killed Eva and Grace, and like the house is just covered in blood. And Zoe wants to kill Benny, but Victor tells her no, keep him. And yeah, just keep him alive. We can use him. So Victor tells him to keep going. Then we cut to Jay and his crew, and they arrive at the first party location to just find like a bloodbath and the vampire leader. That's, I don't know, the guy who had the party. And he's almost dead. And they tell him, give me the information. We'll give you blood. So he tells him the three kings. Then he attacks, and then they kill him. So we cut to Benny, and he's like tripping at the gas station. Like he's like pouring a slushy and he's just like staring off into nothingness. And this is where we learn that he's like, "What did you guys put in the joint?" And Zoe's kind of just like, "I think it's angel dust, but you'll have to ask Blair. She rolled it." Right?
Surprise!
So Zoe sees the cashier on the phone and she grabs him and thinks that he's like snitching on them. She's tripping herself, but like she didn't smoke any of the joints, so I don't know why.
Okay, you're
But
tripping.
she does make a comment that after being alive for 200 years, you know,
Yeah,
wants to be a little crazy, right?
yeah.
So they head to the next party. When they arrive, they decide to take Benny inside with them because, he's gonna dip if they go and leave him in the car, right?
Yep.
So so we get into the club where they all basically just head right to the back, and then we cut to Jay and his crew, and they actually also are entering the club from the back room. We jump back to Zoe and he's meeting the guy in charge of the club, and basically they're about to get ambushed by vampire hunters when Benny smashes a bottle over the guy's head and the girls like quickly kill all the vampires. So this is when Jay and his crew get into the club and we see somebody's kind of watching him in a car outside. So then the girls and Benny head down and they're heading outside and Jay actually spots Benny and he tries to like rush over to him and he actually gets stopped by like a group of nightclub vampires and a
Mhm.
fight kind of breaks out and basically the girls get away before the fight breaks out so they're outside and they're walking to the car and all of a sudden they start getting shot at by the Night Legion, and that's the name of the vampire hunters, and they drive off and Zoe's like dangling out the window, like fucking weird, right? So then we see Jay, and he finally gets outside, and he's confronted by two of the Night Legion, and they basically offer him, they give him this button and say, "Yo, holla at me if you survive," basically, right? We cut back to Benny, and he actually brought the girls to his house, and inside, there's a couple funny moments, like Benny almost gets smoked in the face with a baseball bat from his abuela.
Say he was brave then.
Yeah, right?
That was
Um,
gutsy, man. Bringing vampires home.
yeah, right. So then we get to see Benny and Blair, and they're in their bedroom, and they almost kiss. Then we cut back to Jay as they get stopped by the cop from earlier, and he tells them that Victor wants to meet them, right? So then we cut back to Benny, and Blair and Zoe are like, "All right, let's go." And Blair wants to leave Benny behind, and Benny's like, "No, I'm coming with." Right? So we cut back to Jay as he goes into like the restaurant to meet Victor, and they have this whole back and forth, and we find out that Victor killed Maria and he's like eating her
Yeah,
in
that was
front of.
fucked up.
Yeah.
That was so fucked up.
Yeah, right? So, Jay tries to kill him, he stops him. So we cut back to Benny and the girls, and they're heading to their last target. They head in, and Zoe tells Blair and Benny to let them have some alone time. So while they're outside, Blair and Benny are talking, and he asks about being a vampire. Benny kisses her, We see Zoe. She pulls out a knife and she attempts to stab like that leader dude, and which you didn't even credit him. That's the dude from Grown Ups. That's David Spade's son.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's not his actual son. It's his son in
No,
the
no,
movie.
no. I know who you meant. But I was like, God damn, really?
Yeah, that's who he is. And we cut back outside, and Benny and Blair are still making out. And one of the guys gets tossed out of the window, and Blair heads in to help and tells Benny to go grab the car. So on the way to the car, Zoe gets shot by one of the crossbows, and a brawl breaks out between the Legion and the guys from the bar. So the group takes this opportunity and just drives through them. So Blair tells them to take them to the last destination, at which we find out that it's Victor's house. Blair tells Benny to leave because basically he'll just be killed as soon as he enters the building, right?
Mhm.
So Benny starts to leave, and then he's kind of like, you know what? No, fuck this, right? So he heads inside, and all he has is a baseball bat. So I guess he went in through the garage, and they get in, and we see Victor's like blood, like live blood bank, where he has people hooked up to like these things, taking their blood, essentially like blood taps, right? Because you see later on that he kind of pours himself like a glass of blood, and
Mhm.
it's like a live, I don't know, blood feed from the people in the basement. So he finds his brother there hooked up to one of the machines, right?
Mhm.
And as he's about to hit the glass with his baseball bat, Victor is there behind him, grabs the bat, and basically takes him upstairs. So at this point, Benny's like, okay, take me, let my brother go. So at this point, he pulls out a knife and he tries to stab Victor, which he's easily stopped because Benny's kind of a bitch.
He's
And
also a vampire. I mean,
that too, right? But so Blair kind of steps in and tries to stop them from killing Benny, and Zoe ends up stabbing Blair. And this is
brutal,
where
brutal.
Benny's like, I don't know, he does this weird pose shit and he starts the car, which let me tell you, this wouldn't work because the car doesn't drive more than like 2 feet if you auto start a car without the key, right? So he auto starts the car. He had a rock on the gas pedal, so the car drives into the house, exposing the sunlight, killing Zoe.
Sorry. Bye bye.
So at this point, we don't see Victor, and we find out that Victor went downstairs, got the brother, got Jay, right? Kind of lets him come out of the darkness just to fucking pull him back. So Benny kind of heads over, right? Where Victor comes out and ends up biting him. And then Blair gets up and I guess she like stabs him a bunch of times. Victor slaps her. And so this is what like so obviously let go of Benny. And at this point Jay comes charging out of the back like a football player and tackles Victor into the sunlight, killing Victor, right?
Boss ass move.
Yeah. So Blair grabs Benny and makes him drink her blood. I guess essentially turning him into a vampire, but also
Pretty
saving.
sure Victor bit him, right? He like
Yeah,
took a chunk out of his back.
Victor bit him and like was he was dying, so the only option was to turn him into a vampire essentially. So she makes him drink his blood, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we cut to Benny at home and it's like back and forth between Benny and Jay. And Jay is putting up a candle for Maria, looking at the chip that the Legion gave him. And Benny's kind of like playing with the sunlight and shit. So at this point, we don't know that he's really changed or turned, right?
Yeah.
Um, so then we cut to Benny and Jay, and they're eating pizza. Where we find out Benny has been turned, and Jay knows about it. And Benny basically leaves and tells Jay, "Look under the table," and there's the bag of money from earlier. So then we cut back, and Benny's at school, where Blair ends up picking him up, and we see his fangs, and the credits roll. And yeah, that's Night Teeth 2021.
Night Tooth. Well, sir, the question is now, did you like it?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I guess I might have a small bias because I really enjoy vampire movies, but yeah, for the most part, I did enjoy it. What about you?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I actually, when it comes to vampire movies, you kind of usually have expectations, and this didn't serve all the expectations. Like, I figured we were going to see a heart steak or, the garlic or something, you know what I mean? Like all the cliche shit. Because that's what's what you get usually from vampire movies. You get the cliche shit.
Well, they did have to be stabbed in the heart, but I mean, it seemed
But you
like you
didn't
could
have
stab
you
him
didn't
with a
see like the
knife.
steaks, you know what I mean? Yeah, you used knives and it worked. And you didn't see people going crosses and this and that. You know what I mean? Like you didn't get all those normal cliches.
Yeah,
So I think we like this movie better than Rotten Tomatoes did, by the way. This thing did terrible on Rotten Tomatoes.
it doesn't surprise me. Does not surprise me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, John. So I guess this brings us to the good, the bad.
And the meh.
Yeah. So what's your good, John?
You know, I took a little bit of time to think about it because there was a handful of things that I could have picked, but I ended up going with the chemistry between Benny and Blair. They worked very, very well together. I thought all of their on-screen time was very well put together. They seemed to like everything felt kind of genuine between them. You know what I mean? You didn't have like a one was more interested than the other at any given point in time kind of feeling. So yeah, their chemistry was my good. What about you, sir?
All right. So my good is probably every time the two girls is probably like kicking ass. That's probably one of like the better things in this movie,
See that? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my good was the girls kicking ass. Yeah. So
I like it.
yeah. So my meh would probably have to be some of the dialogue. Some of the dialogue was a little eh, whatever, you know. What about you? What was your meh?
I think the whole Megan Fox aspect of this movie didn't need to happen. Feel like she was just an added layer for no particular reason. I could be wrong. I might have just overlooked it to some degree, but like if Victor never interacted with those two, would anything have been different? Like if they maybe just put him up there instead of have a layer that was like a quick one and done. You know what I mean? Like it was just meh.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that scenes those scenes weren't really important other than to kind of trigger the fact of those are his
Someone was trying to
those
take
are
over his. Yeah.
those are his bosses, right? And he's rebelling. You know, I guess if
Yeah.
they didn't show that scene, it would have been more like, well, he's in charge. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody his kind standing in his way, right? But that's the whole plot of the movie is them shutting down the vampire network. So it's
Yeah, and breaking into that whole Boyle Heights thing. Yeah, I guess, but they could have found their way around it. I think more simply than bringing in Megan Fox and other actress for what like 6 minutes of screen time.
I guess. I
uh,
guess.
but but my bad. Since we're gonna segue, uh, I honestly didn't like how obvious it felt that Benny was going to turn. And I don't know if you picked up on it early too, but like it seemed like halfway ish through the movie, you could kind of start telling that Benny was kind of like, I wouldn't mind being one of these people. And it just kind of like it was predictable. I knew it was coming after like like I said, like half the movie. So I they could have cast that whole shadow a little bit more darkly and not made it so obvious.
Well, I mean, they kind of were doing that because I believe they're setting up like another movie if they could get one off, like a sequel of the brother being a hunter and him being a vampire, right? That kind of set up for a sequel.
Yes. I don't think they're
But
gonna get it.
no, but I mean, that's what it seemed like they were setting up for. So I mean, but wouldn't you want to be a vampire?
Of course. That would be dope as shit.
So
I don't doubt that. I just kind of wish that his desire was a little less on his sleeve.
okay, I guess.
You know what I mean? Like he should have had his brother should have been the reason he had reservations. And it didn't seem like his brother having and being there gave him those reservations. You know what I mean? Like would you want to abandon the fact that your family is not going to be the same way as you? You know what I mean? There's the moral question to it and stuff like that.
I mean,
So
at that point, if you choose to become a vampire, at that point you're not really thinking about anything but yourself, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And
So
obviously by the end he didn't have much of a choice, but I don't think it was the way he was interested in Blair. I suspect he was going to be willing one way or another.
I don't know. He could have went True Blood, and just been banging a vampire.
Yeah, and they could have been that cliche vampire human couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, what about you? What was your bad?
Um, my bad was I kind of wish that we got a little bit more background on like the vampire like kings and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
instead of them already being dead before we even meet them,
yeah, pretty much, So yeah, that'd probably be the my bad. Wish I got a little more info out of this movie.
give it to them Blade style, where you see them all in like a room, all meeting one person or what have you.
Essentially. But yeah. So I guess that brings us to John's highlight. So
Uh, so my highlight, sir, is the scene where Benny was in the bar or the club with the girls, and everything slowed down, and he took the bottle and smashed dude over the head to help the girls get out of that situation where they were otherwise screwed entirely with the Night Legion. I
okay.
thought him coming to to their aid was a testament to my point from the bad, but at the same time, it was also a really cool scene. It was shot really cool, and it kind of also presented it also kind of presented the dynamic between Blair and Benny to be a little bit more stable and interesting to me.
Hmm, okay. Okay.
Now, what about your letdown, my man?
Uh this one's more tricky because again, I enjoyed the movie, but my letdown scene would have to be probably the final confrontation, like to kill Zoe and Victor with the fucking sun. It's quite lame. So, I would have much rather see them like get stabbed and then burn up, not, oh no, the sunlight. Like I always thought like the sunlight being a vampire's weakness is super shit, right? So,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, so that's probably that only letdown I have is the deaths of the two villains of the damn movie. So, John, what are we doing next week?
Next week we're gonna do Metal Lords. It's a metal music movie, and we're gonna have a special guest, my good friend Stephen Webb, who is a metal music producer in some capacity, and he is the producer of our music. So we'll be having him on next week to cover Metal Lords.
No, no.
So, with all that being said, we would love it if you would give us a like, share, review, subscribe, follow on any podcast platform you can find us on. Also, you can find us on Instagram at MNWTB Podcast, on Twitter at MNWTBoys, and on TikTok at MNWTB Pod. Where else can we be found? Zach?
You can find us on YouTube at Movie Night with the Boys! ! We also have a gaming channel, Gaming Night with the Boys. And we also finally have a Facebook page, Movie Night at Movie Night at the Boys. Or if you search MNWTB
Podcast?
Pod. No, it's MNWTB Boys. MNWT Boys Pod on Facebook.
It's also called Movie Night with the Boys, not Movie Night with and Boys, I think is what you said. All right, Zach. Well, it's been real. Deuces.
I don't fucking know.